Okay, I don't know if anyone else remembers the article that went super viral a couple years ago. It was called James Charles Would Like to Be Uncancelled, Please. So I was on a flight yesterday from London to Belfast to come home, and for some reason this article really popped into my head, and I was waiting until this moment to kind of go through it again, because I know that probably in the moment it was that shocking that we did go through it, but I think in the wake of recent allegations coming to light again about James Charles, specifically with the then 14-year-old boy Ethan, now speaking up again. And I saw that he posted being like, I'm going to be making an in-depth video, so we'll see if that comes out and we'll see what's going on. But I made a video as well, which was the rise and fall of James Charles, and I spoke a lot about, the allegations, and I just think that this is a big piece of internet lore that even I forget about, that whether this was a paid-for PR move or not, Cosmopolitan, which are, I would say, a pretty respected media entity. Sorry, you can see that I was listening to Addison Rae's album. It's really good. It's really good. Now, I don't know if this was a PR move from, I would say, a respected media brand, Cosmopolitan, where they were paid off by James or his team, or I don't know if they were genuinely just wanting a media piece that would be controversial, and so they went with it and just got clicks. So what I want us to do right now is go through the article, because again, it has been, I would say, almost 2 years since this article went live. And it was actually kind of hard to find when I typed in online, James Charles Would Like to Be Uncancelled, Please. Now, I know that this can range from device to device, but it was redirecting me to other articles about James, and the only way I was able to find it was going through Cosmopolitan's Twitter link to it and going and finding it. Now, again, I'm aware that might not be the case for everyone. It could just be like a Google thing, but it's interesting that this article was quite hard for me to find. So I just want to go through it and kind of read it, because this article came out after a shit ton of allegations came out against James Charles. So this was in some way a PR move, whether it was paid for or not. But the reason I wanted to read it was because so much was happening in my personal life in July of 2023. That was when the Colleen stuff was going down, and every day was a battle, mama, online. So stuff like this would have really kind of flown over my radar, and I would have covered it very quickly and, tried to do my best with it, but my mind was elsewhere. So I want to go through and read this with you. We'll go through it together, and then we can kind of come to a consensus of like who made this article happen on Cosmopolitan as well, which is just crazy. So the article title is obviously the infamous James Charles Would Like to Be Uncancelled, Please. More than 2 years after allegations sent the superstar beauty YouTuber into influencer purgatory, he's hoping to relaunch himself and his brand with the help of a new makeup line. In a wide-ranging interview with Cosmopolitan, James Charles talks about fucking up and trying to move on. Okay, so first line, we're already seeing that this was obviously promoting his makeup brand Painted, which, by the way, is that still a thing? I don't know if it's just because no one is really that hype about makeup and makeup brands anymore, but I really don't see anyone post about Painted. I may be wrong. I'm not on that side of TikTok, I guess. But it's also really interesting to note that James started to rebrand himself to more lifestyle stuff on TikTok during the time when he was promoting his makeup brand, kind of garnering a bigger, wider, younger audience who were, the makeup people were aging up into their mid-20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, whereas the influencer kind of market on TikTok is very young teens. So something to note there. Okay, so it is the year of the internet, 2023, and as surely as the sun rises, an internet celebrity has an apology to make. So here I am, sitting in James Charles's mansion like a pop culture priest, ready to take his confession. What an interesting start. You should be calling yourself a cop, ready to interrogate him. Let us begin. I don't want to sit here and fucking mope and whine and cry because nobody wants to hear it, says James Charles, sinking into a plush couch in his casual open living room. This thing about journalism always kills me whenever they just add unnecessary details trying to get us to picture the scene. Like, we didn't need to know that he was sinking into his little plush open plan. Miss me with that. I had a lot of thinking to do. Like, okay, babe, this is your fault. No, you're not a pedophile. No, you're not a fucking groomer. No, you're not a predator, but you made a big mistake. That's a really interesting start to the piece. No, you're not a pedo. No, you're not a groomer. No, you're not a predator. You just made a mistake. Where have I heard that before? I'm not a groomer, just a loser who didn't understand I couldn't talk to fans, and I'm not a Predator, even though a lot of you say so, because something a dad, I made a fart joke. Somehow, that song, forever ingrained. This is very much so giving that. And then it cuts to like photos of him doing his makeup. At this point, you're likely familiar with the specific inherent in celebrity profiles like this. The ones that come together post-cancellation after a respectable amount of time has passed post-cancelable sin. It's no surprise that a star's willingness to answer intimate questions about a catastrophic stretch of their lives increases dramatically when they have a project to promote. Okay, so this is acknowledging that James is not the first person to kind of do this PR move to try clear their name when they're launching a product. So this kind of is giving me that James reached out to them, because they're acknowledging here that James is not the first person to do this. In today's case, that's James Charles's new makeup line, Painted, but it's also James Charles himself, a warrior, acceptably contrite, but also still a little extra. This very interview is to be a trial balloon. Okay, so so this was obviously set up by James PR then. They're trying to test the public perception because he had left for a bit, right, on the internet. He wasn't posting on his YouTube. And maybe you too, if you can ask, is James Charles still cancelled? After all, would a still outs person be allowed to pose for a red carpet cameras at the People's Choice Awards or chat with paparazzi while out and about in Hollywood? Would a still banished person have hundreds of thousands of fans enthusiastically engaging with his YouTube beauty tutorials? Would a truly exiled person be 24 years old and living in a reported $7 million farmhouse that looks like a cross between the homes featured in the later seasons of Vanderpump Rules and any seasons of all of the iterations of the Kardashians? You know, the black and white modern exteriors, hyper-organized interiors. When I arrived, I noticed Oreos decadent in a glass jar on a pristine marble kitchen island. A display technically created by Khloe Kardashian. Okay, so again, we're getting a lot of bluff about his apartment. The point that they're making there in terms of like cancel culture, oh, this person still has millions. Cancel culture, oh, this person still lives in their mansion. Cancel culture, oh, this person is still, having millions of followers. I always talk about it. People talk about cancel culture, woke culture. I'm doing the Trump hands again. Woke culture, cancel culture. There's never been a worse culture. The thing is about that is these people never actually face repercussions unless they want to face repercussions, which no one does because then they're just losing money. The only people who have ever been successfully canceled have been people who have walked away from when they were canceled. It's as easy as that. James Charles is like the rest of them, a little cockroach. We will not be able to, swat that little thing away. But I think that's a really good point that they're bringing up here. And then James Charles's 2 dogs are also nearby. There's a lot riding on the answer. Painted, a solo venture 4 years in the making. And I remember when he launched that, it was way too late. You know what I mean? Like James Charles releasing a makeup palette however many years into his fame, however many scandals left, however many tainted PR moves, it felt just too late. Why didn't he release it whenever he released the James Charles Morphe palette? Didn't that do incredibly well? Could you imagine a makeup line back then? Baby, as much as you like or dislike Jeffree Star, he got the timing of his brand down. Him converting to YouTube down. You know what I mean? Like, good for him. As evil as that man is, he's a good businessman. He understands how to, capitalize off of your audience. James took too long, and he loves to, I was taking my time with it. Please. You're telling me you would rather waste millions of dollars per year to work on your brand rather than forcing something out quickly? Look at the James Charles Morphe palette. That shit was staining people's eyes. That necessarily wasn't the greatest piece of fucking literature in the entire... Literature is crazy. Piece of makeup in the entire world, you know what I mean? Miss me with that. So anyways, people have speculated that I have partners or investors, which I don't know how that rumor got started, James Charles says. This line is fully self-funded. Every single dollar that has gone into this brand has been from my personal savings and checking accounts. I have no investors, no partners, no billion-dollar backers behind me. I wonder why. Because 14-year-old boys don't have millions of dollars to invest in James Charles' fucking brands. Okay, when I polled friends and colleagues about Charles in the run-up to this day, the general consensus was that he's done something bad, but not clear as to what it was exactly. So this is really interesting because the journalist here is like breaking the fourth wall, talking about like them talking to their friends about talking to James Charles. And again, kind of reiterating that people don't like James, but a majority of people that don't like James don't know why they don't like him. So we go on. That neither of us knows how it will go is due to the murky nature of cancel culture and its crisscrossing tripwires of implied and loosely enforced rules. I think that's pretty fair to say. I think when people think of cancel culture, they think of it as this big demon. It's not really. And again, the inconsistencies with how some people are treated when they're canceled versus others, or even things people get in trouble for, goes to show how bullshit cancel culture is. And that's coming from me. God. And because of a hungry and fickle internet that doles out forgiveness, or maybe just forgetfulness, seemingly at whim, it's a landscape, hellscape, some would say, in which all comebacks are tentative and where the conversation around an offense often ends up obscuring the offense itself, which is an interesting point. When I polled friends and colleagues about James Charles in the run-up to this day, the general consensus was that he's done something bad, but they don't know exactly what. As a very online millennial, I had long been aware of James Charles while also knowing next to nothing about him. The influencer's platonic ideal. I went valley there. Ideal. The platonic ideal. Bored at home during the pandemic, I watched the Dramageddon feud he had with another YouTuber whose name I can never remember. Oh, you mean that diva design, Tati Westbrook? Put some respect on Tati Westbrook's name. A hilarious non-scandal that possibly had something to do with hair vitamins. It seems like everyone in my life under the age of 25 considers James Charles an internet celebrity, and no one over 45 has ever heard from him unless they have children, and then he's probably texting them. Allegedly. Those in the former group know that he's been famous since his teen years, although his storylines are very self-produced. James Charles first went viral in 2016 after he brought a ring light and used glossy highlighter to accentuate the cheekbones for his high school yearbook photo. And he became the first male spokesperson for CoverGirl and a guest on Ellen right after that. And also, they don't include it here, but he lied about that. He was exposed for editing that photo, and he didn't actually bring his ring light into his school and do that, which is so fucking funny. I talked about this in the Rise and Fall video of James. His initial thing he went viral for, he lied about, which sets a really beautiful, ironic tone. We should have known from the start. He did a commercial with Katy Perry, filmed with the Kardashians, hosted a YouTuber reality competition show that we watched, by the way, on this very YouTube channel. Instant influencer. The combination of his fresh face, youthful and bold, aesthetic made him one of the most financially successful beauty YouTubers of all time, with an annual reported income, rumored, of more than $10 million in 2020. At one point, he was so popular that he reported a 30-second appearance he made at a British mall drew thousands of teenagers, helping create a traffic gridlock so extreme that some drivers apparently abandoned their cars overnight. Sheesh. In a corner of the internet known for constant snipping, backstabbing, and hopelessly, having these rivalries, the same lack of status that drew in viewers made James become a magnet for drama. There he was, posting regular apologies for things like insensitive tweets about Africa and Ebola, or asking Shawn Mendes to juggle me like that during an IG live in which Shawn was literally juggling. James Charles developed a reputation for a kind of over-the-top thirstiness. Oh, that is such a hit. That's so embarrassing that this is written about you in like a main fucking stream news article. He's known for his over-the-top thirstiness. Oh my god, I could not. A quality that could be interpreted as refreshingly candid or cringe, depending on who you asked. At least one rival, it should be said, interpreted differently. His Dramageddon opponent initially accused Charles of using his fame to manipulate straight men. And the things that you wanted to do to the waiter, and when I told you, James, he's straight, you said, doesn't matter, I'm a celebrity. So freaking gross. And I had to call everyone up the next day and apologize on your behalf. And when I told you, James, I don't know the rest. What is it? I'm used to this around he was at the dinner table talking about, sex, and I'm used to this around, everyone else, but around his parents, I just didn't think that he was going to be like, it's no big deal, like sucking dick and cock, and, you did it at my birthday dinner, and it's just so freaking... Oh, so good. So good. True, true to influencer form, she retracted the statement and apologized a year later. Yet all the drama seemed to ultimately earn him one thing: more followers. At his peak, James Charles had nearly 26 million YouTube subscribers on top of tens of millions more on TikTok and Instagram. This was all before, though. It's like before Christ, before grooming. BG, before grooming. This was all before, though. In February 2021, at age 21, Charles confronted a career crisis he couldn't quickly apologize for or capitalize on. That is so great that they include that. Not only quickly apologize, but capitalize on. I like that line. I like that. He was publicly accused of sending lewd photos and inappropriate sexual messages to a then 16-year-old fan. Charles said he was misled into believing the boy was 18 because that makes it better. Barely legal. Yippee, James! Baby, that's the cops. Oh my god, I just burped so much. Goodness me. Where are my manners? Where are my manners? And that he blocked him as soon as he learned the truth. I've never been more disgusted in my life than when I found out that kid was 16 years old, Charles says now. I was mortified, absolutely mortified. The fan did not return Cosmopolitan's request for comment. Leave those kids alone. Haven't they dealt with enough from James Charles? Pissed me off. Missed me with that. The allegation triggered more complaints about Charles. They were primarily from the form of TikToks filled with screenshots of flirtation conversations between James Charles that he had allegedly conducted with a number of male fans. Remember that video where he said he uses his TikTok For You page as a dating app? Yep. Okay. A few of the reported accusations, like the initial one, were serious and claimed to detail inappropriate online interactions between Charles and minors. Other claims, including an incident in which Charles allegedly called someone daddy, felt muddier. Almost all of them were eventually rounded up into viral Twitter threads by a controversial poster who keeps track of internet scandals, now under fire himself. Oh my god, they're talking about Dennis! They're talking about Deaf Noodles! Oh, Dennis made it into this article! Goodness. In the end, substance, oh my god, I know how to say this word, but I literally cannot say it right now. Substantialized. Girl, you know what I'm talking about. I didn't do well in school. Please stop using these big words. This is why I don't read. Like, I can. Or not, multiple media reports indicated that at least 15 boys or men had accused Charles of inappropriate behavior. Charles says now that about the allegations, the source of where the list came from was not doing any source of research and no fact checking. So here's him putting the blame on Dennis, and he got away with all of this because Dennis's unreliability. Fuck you, Deaf Noodles. Fuck you, bitch. Some of the screenshots depicted consensual conversations between adults, he says, but others were completely fake. And I wouldn't run that past fucking Deaf Noodles. Jesus Christ. The integrity he has when it comes to media reporting. And never happened. Charles has never been legally charged with engaging inappropriately with a minor, let alone provenly to have done so. Nevertheless, that April, Charles uploaded a 14-minute YouTube video, now deleted, by the way, titled Holding Myself Accountable, where he admitted to exchanging messages with 2 of the 16-year-old boys that he said he was misled, believing that they were 18. He confirmed 2 of the 16-year-old boys were telling the truth, which is crazy because he then deleted the video. He said that it was his desperate behavior. That's how he tried to get out of it. And then he deleted the video, and everyone forgot about it. Cosmopolitan reached out to multiple people who said they were minors at the time of their exchange with James. One asked if we would be willing to pay and did not reply when we said that we don't compensate for interviews. But another former accuser wrote back via Instagram DMs with a new revelation. He said already privately apologized to Charles a few months ago for telling him I was 18 a few years ago, and the TikTok I made blew the situation up. When asked to elaborate, the person did not reply. James Charles's team says someone did message Charles this spring admitting that he lied about his age. Why is James going after people who look so fucking young that he has to like validate their age via ID and stuff like that? Let's put it down to that as well. If a celebrity with tens of millions of followers came sliding into your DMs, would you respond? I probably would. James, I don't like that they included that. That's really fucking weird. That's really weird to include. If a celebrity with tens of millions of followers came sliding into your DMs, would you respond? I probably would. Well, I'm hoping they're not going to try fucking groom me or try send me nudes. Don't be weird. James Charles says he recognizes the power imbalance at play in his interactions online. Does he? Girl, we've been dealing with this for years. He says he's been more sensitive to how his fame can color the way others respond to him. Color the way others respond to him. What the fuck? This is so weird. This is weirder than I remember it. Oh, I absolutely did fuck up, James Charles. But he denies that he ever engaged in grooming, a practice defined by the anti-sexual violence organization RAINN as manipulate. We know what that is. We've covered that a lot on my channel. Charles continues, I feel like the word is very popular and a buzzword right now. Is what he said about grooming. Now, you know what's crazy? That I am going to speak up here. This article came out in the middle of the Colleen stuff, where everyone was talking about grooming, right? So, yet again, James in 2020 made tweets attacking me, telling people not to believe me, and I was a fucking liar when I spoke out about Colleen for the first time. But then in 2023, he yet again is fucking doing this thing where he's saying about, oh, grooming's just a buzzword by these people. Fuck you. Oh, I hate him. Especially in politics and stuff. But the actual meaning of it has been so misconstrued. Girl, please. Referring to the first allegation against him, he adds, the conversation lasted 1 hour. I don't know this person. I've never met this person. Nothing happened between me and this person. So to use that word is categorically incorrect. Bitch, tell me why I was scrolling on Twitter one day then, and I'm seeing fucking ass pics from you. From these people leaking all this stuff. Not that I agree with anything like that, but he downplays that anything happened in any of these, yet some of these boys were posting photos of James Charles lying in his bed fucking ass up, and I'm scrolling minding my own business on Twitter and I see it. I don't agree with anything like that being posted, but he keeps diminishing that nothing happened with any of these people, yet we have photos being posted from some of them that are James Charles lewds or nudes. So what? God. In the absence of hard evidence, what does that mean? I do not understand what, in the absence of hard evidence, hordes of commenters and bystanders trying to get the idea that Charles was creepy, irresponsible at best, predatory at worst. This is so weird. They're literally now being like, oh, well, thank God James didn't do anything wrong. And here we're probably going to see them venture towards the palette. So James and his team probably agreed to let them write all this, ultimately, if they downplayed everything and promoted the brand at the end. It basically says his apology was mocked online. After years of benefiting from online controversies, Charles had become too toxic for the internet. Now, I think that line's really interesting. He did benefit off of scandals, and then ultimately he benefited off of them until he couldn't no more, until it literally tarnished. His YouTube page was demonetized, he did not return as a host for Insta Influencer, and his other business ventures languished. He and Morphe, cut ties, and Morphe, stopped selling his products. I can't even begin to explain how bad that week of my life was, Charles remembers as he looks out on his back guard. I was crying every single day myself to sleep. I was sitting there in the bed staring at my phone. I wanted to K myself. I wasn't talking to anyone. People threw food into his yard and spray painted his property fences, prompting him to hire security. I think I've always been someone who's been able to cope. He continues. I've been able to turn my phone off, go see my family, have my friends over, go to an escape room, watch a fun movie, play Mario Kart, girl, we get it, build a Lego set. With this situation, it was scary because my coping mechanisms weren't coping. It was the time where I went, oh fuck, I actually don't know what to do. It eventually got to a part where I said, this is not healthy, this is not good, this is a really dark place. The fallout becomes deeply personal when his younger brother, who works as a model in New York City, stopped talking to him because of the allegations. It's now been 2 years since they've spoken. Treading a well-worn line post-scandal path, Charles spent the next few months mostly offline doing, here we see the line, a lot of self-reflecting and, talking with mental health professionals. And while a couple of months may seem like a laughably short amount of time for a break, to Charles, having no stage felt like an endless punishment. Yeah, because he's a narcissist. I absolutely fucking hated it, he says. I am someone who likes to be busy at all times. I love filming. Having nothing to do drove me insane. In the summer of 2021, Charles prepped a comeback video, which was a 30-minute YouTube post titled An Open Conversation, another one of the names for the lore, which began with the acknowledgement that it would be ridiculous and irresponsible to try to come back to social media and pretend that nothing happened. It quickly became YouTube's most disliked video of that week, although it's been watched more than 6 million times to date. His next post about a TikTok cookie trend was only the third most disliked video of the week, so Charles kept posting, driven by what I would assume as a need for online interaction. As the only gay kid in a school in a small town, Charles found his community on social media, he says. First on Tumblr, then Twitter, then Instagram. So then it goes on. It talks romantic relationships would become a whole other challenge. One that would ultimately lead to the incidents, he says. Finding dating prospects in the rare field influencer celebrity, quote, has been very tough. James says this, quickly, please name 5 famous male gay celebrities from the ages of 20 to 25. He says, you can't because they don't exist. Not true at all, and a very, very, very weird way to diminish your dating habits being young people to name me gay male celebrities my age. Well, first of all, you don't want them because they're gay. You want the straight ones, but alas. He started using his TikTok For You and Instagram Explore pages as dating apps. Oh my god, I can't believe this is literally in the article. His biggest mistakes, he now thinks, were making himself too available and recklessly hitting on anyone that might even show him interest. This is crazy to be admitting to. His intention was never to prey on minors, he says. He tried to explain this all in the Holding Myself Accountable, which is now deleted, by the way. But it didn't come across right, he reflects. I've been fucked over by men. Men is generous. You've been fucked over by boys so many different times. At this point, I just want a fucking boyfriend, someone that's going to love me, that's going to care for me. So a lot of the times, I will look at people through rose-colored glasses. No, you're looking at them through the skull glasses of the gates of the skull that they're... I'm kidding. That's a joke. That's a joke. Allegedly, I don't believe he does that. He messages them on TikTok, allegedly. I still have to ask, though, why didn't he stick to the actual adult dating apps? He tells me he previously had accounts on Raya, Tinder, Hinge, and Bumble. And while he did go on dates with people, he ultimately felt too exposed, like anyone who swiped right on him would use their conversations for social media clout. But messaging young boys that followed him was perfect. How is this something they're admitting? Okay. It says, I know, you know, and he knows that Charles is on a mission to rehabilitate his reputation, but even though we've already established he's very good at his job, I have to tell you that in person, his regrets don't come across in person as the opportunistic, that celebrities want to wade through. It's more that he just seems like a young person, so they're excusing that he's actually just really young and naive and dumb. I sometimes wonder what I would do if I blew up in public, in my professional life and everything was online. This journalist is now talking about what they would do in James's situation. It says James is more cautious now, although not so much that he's given up on DM sliding completely. Instead, he started requiring potential romantic interest to provide identification before he'll engage. I'm a club bouncer at this stage. Girl, you're a school disco security guard. He says, which even still hasn't stopped the occasional breach of trust. Earlier this year, a TikTok user shared snippets of a flirtatious conversation he had with Charles in which Charles outlined his requirements for a boyfriend. Now, I don't know if y'all remember it. He was like, pits, an occasional FaceTime call, big dick. What do you get in return? Getting to stay in my mansion house, good head, like weirdo, freak. Jesus Christ. James Charles also tells me he recently caught a 17-year-old trying to lie about his age by seeing his ID. More than anything, Charles seems more focused on his goal, which is to reclaim his spot in cultural mainstream. Eventually, he hired a PR firm to help. They were trying to get me into every single event and premiere and red carpet and show, and every single one of them was a no, he says. But ultimately, the gatekeepers, by some mysteriously but increasingly common mystery, softened on him. Charles started making significant appearances: the Grammys, the Scream 6 movie premiere, Young Hollywood Night hosted by Vanity Fair and TikTok, and I should note, he also appeared at Cosmopolitan's party in LA. Who would have thought? I can't believe they would admit that. Okay, and then they start talking about his makeup brand, but we don't care about that. This article is very clearly from that PR firm that they're literally saying that James hired. However, the article still just paints him as a fucking weirdo. James Charles would like to be on Cancel Please. What a bizarre fucking article. It's crazy. Muckers, let me know your opinion of this. Who do you think organized this? Do you think it was Cosmo reaching out to them? Let me know. Let's talk about it down below. I appreciate you being here, and goodbye.